We are back with the two new casters. Kashka and Oak are here to join me for the first game for them, CGA versus Sengoku, which is a pretty important game in terms of the standings as well. I think that as we get close to the end of the season, everything is going to mean a little bit more. But Kashka, I'm just going to start off warm. You know, we're going to start this off a little bit hot. Who do you have winning this game?
Oh, I mean, that is a tough one. I would favor Sengoku, mostly because CGA in the last couple of games have looked a bit shaky. Sengoku, they are this team that is contesting for the third place. A win here means they are still potentially in the race for that second, but I mean, with how Rascal just look might be tough, but yeah, I'm just gonna go with Sengoku.
Yeah, fair enough. And then from you, Oak, as well, just off the bat, who do you think is winning this one?
I'm a big Sengoku fan. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Jet specifically, but I'll go with Crest Gaming Act. I think once they get there, they get everything in place. Hybrid is just such a monster, especially on this Aphelios, which is like so comfortable on. I'm looking towards whether or not Crest Gaming Act really can correctly identify that and play towards him, because when they do get that ball rolling on that player, he tends to take control.
Indeed. And talking about taking control, obviously, when we look at Sengoku, sometimes you think the team can be a little bit disjointed. Maybe they need some glue. But actually, to stick all the pieces together, they use Honey. And I think that's exactly where they're going to be playing it through today. Like, that bot lane is going to be so important. But the same can be said for CGA. You know, Hybrid is going to be a huge component of their win condition. And when it does come to the two times to the bot lane, who do you think has the edge in this matchup?
I mean, I would lean towards Honey and NT, who've looked definitely more comfortable as a duo or more consistent as a duo. I think Nema has had his upswings and downswings. When you're specifically looking at, I think at the start of this season, we're looking towards Thresh and that being a key pick for him. But actually, he seems more comfortable now on stuff like the Leona. And so when you pair that with Aphelios Leona, such a scary threat in lane, when they've looked on that, and especially when Nema's found correct roam timings, he's looked so good, but then he's had really poor performances as well. So it's really, are we going to get Nema on a good day?
Yeah, that is true. Obviously, we had an amazing Nautilus performance from him last time I was on broadcast, I believe, and it was crazy. You know, Nema really did just put that game on his back. Kashka, for you, obviously, we are looking at that bot side a lot, but we do also have to look at the jungle. Obviously, once has been a pretty big component of this side's wins, but also Kassin has been CGA's number one. You know, on that, Graves has had some huge performances.
Absolutely. I mean, Kassin has had some pop-off performances, on the champion like Rek'Sai once as well. I remember that game fairly vividly. But also, I feel like an interesting case is the round 2 Robin game between CGA and Sengoku, where it was Kassin on that Hecarim who was able to find quite a lot of ganks throughout the whole map. So when it comes to the junglers, I feel like the big question that has to be answered in the early game is, are they able to find ganks? Are they able to find the leads for their team? Because that might just be the deciding factor.
No, indeed. And I think that it's hard to say. You know, I feel like with CGA, I always get to this point where I'm kind of just like, what CGA are we going to get? You know, are we going to get the CGA that absolutely demolished Burning Core? Are we going to get the CGA that kind of just lost? You know, like it's kind of like it's very up and down between this team. Whereas I feel like Sengoku have been a little bit more consistent. And do you feel like the consistency is key? And if so, what is Sengoku's consistency? You know, what do you see as Sengoku being like their major win con? How do they like to play?
I think, well, they have multiple win cons, which is the beauty of why I think where this consistency really comes from is because CGA, kind of more of a single gaming act, Hybrid is their number one player, right? But Jet has, after a couple of performances where he was not so hot, he seems to have taken it back into his stride again. And on a few key, especially counter picks, especially stuff like the Silas, the assassins he's oh so well known for, LeBlanc has a ridiculous ban rate against Sengoku. When he's on his comfort, this player becomes a second enabler for the team, and it gives a really easy avenue for Once to play through. And Once has taken it on his shoulders to go, I'm resolutely playing one champion this split, and it will be Lee Sin, and that performs so well with how they've been looking to play this early game.
You know, definitely has, and obviously momentum, a big thing in League of Legends, right? Sengoku coming off a 1-loss streak, admittedly to DFM, but previously had been picking up wins. CGA, however, on a 3-loss streak. Does that potential, and against some teams that maybe we didn't think they'd lose to as well. Like, they lost to Burning Core again. They did lose to DFM, which admittedly is pretty expected, but they also lost to Axis. So do you feel like maybe they're starting to have a little bit of a shaky moment? Are they starting to kind of dip out of favor? Was it a bit of a spike that they were picking up all of those wins? Or do you think that actually maybe they just had a couple of bad games and they can just refocus and bring it back for today?
So my idea is, well, CGA started off with 1-3, bit of a shaky start, but then they went 7-1 across 8 games. That is not something that just randomly happens. Clearly, this team kind of knows what they're doing, but then the 0-3 loss streak recently, I think they definitely have what it takes to be consistent. It's just about, can they get themselves out of that recent
We'll have
slump?
to find out. The picks are going to be coming up, and obviously we know how important pick and ban can be. So Kashka, Oak, take it away.
All right, we are going to get into the picks and bans. Sengoku on the blue side, CGA on the red side. Syndra, Graves, Silas, Jinx. Very
yeah, I mean, we're
bans.
taking away CJ's most comfortable picks. Kassin even has looked very, very comfortable on the Graves, had some very good games in there. And when you combine that with the Syndra as well, which is Kaito's most played champions, SG are targeting this mid-jungle duo specifically to slow down this early game or pressure that these 2v2 can bring out.
Yeah, also Zeri, fun fact, banned against CGA in 80% of their games, so still gonna be taken away this time around. Surprising lack of jungle bans outside of that Graves. The Hecarim is the hover. I wouldn't be surprised to see these teams just trade the junglers.
Yeah, I think you're really right. I think the specific targeting of these bans, especially that Aphelios Jinx, basically both teams have decided to get rid of the top 3, and we are on 12.5. We are a little bit unsure whether or not that includes 12.5b, but we'll guide you through it anyway as these picks come out. Yeah, Hecarim, a very strong blind B1 pick. People have been really opting more and more towards it as patches have progressed, as just early game enabling champion, a pretty good team fighting ultimate with that onslaught of shadows, and not really many answers to it at the moment.
Not at all, and it's just, as you said, very well-rounded, provides the engage, provides almost anything that you want. That being said, I mentioned Rek'Sai in passing. I did not expect to see it today from Kassin. I'm gonna be honest, I just kind of threw that one out there.
Yeah, we mentioned it in tangent with stuff like the Nautilus, which Nema's been pretty comfortable on, tied with his most played champion of the split with that Leona as well. So they're really looking towards the early game, especially one item spike, because Rek'Sai, very well-known Prowler's Claw abuser, and when you're on that one item, it can be really scary for an AD carry to try and play the game. And so Sengoku have analyzed that, an immediate response, and have opted towards the side with that feather call where you get to jump into the air with untargetability. They really don't want to have to deal with Rek'Sai diving this backline.
Yeah, I mean, insane AD carry into the engage, and I believe it was Sengoku actually, Honey, that pulled it off.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
First time round. Was it also against CGA? Or
I don't know, but you're right. Honey has actually done this before.
No, it was CGA. Oh no, it was CGA against Sengoku. Okay. I mixed up the teams here.
Oh no, my brain was okay. It's fine. It's my fault too. We'll move through it. So they lock in the Xayah along top of this Leona. So we're seeing engage choices as well as a little bit of pick, as well as some safety in the AD. And so looks like CGA have opted instead to double down with the Vex. So they know that once that Xayah ultimate is burnt out, they can engage afterwards, and just having that follow-up pseudo engage coming out from your comp can really help to benefit to pick off that AD carry. And they're looking towards it here. Now this is Kaito's second most played champion. So still bringing out a little bit of comfort, maybe trying to get this mid lane picked in early before double bans come in, and CJ immediately respond as well with an Ahri ban.
Yeah, trying to get rid of as many of those, I feel like, mobile mid laners here is gonna be the call if you're CGA. Also, something funny I noticed is Sengoku have Hecarim, Xayah, Leona. Those are the 3 of the 5 champions CGA played against Sengoku last time these teams faced each other. So really, Sengoku just taking the page out of CGA's book. And
with a bit of a salty run back.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out with Kai'Sa being the first ban in the second phase from Sengoku.
And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see another mid lane ban locked in here. Another thing could be maybe they target Paz, who's been very comfortable on the Graves right now. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that because they already banned it. Maybe the Gwen, but they opt for the Rise instead. So again, Jet's most played champion in the split though far. They just want to get him off these key picks that can really effectively deal with Vex's early game. Yeah,
and let's not talk about Havertz. We are expecting an ADC lock, and I would imagine probably leave that counter pick over to Nap in the top lane. You see, what do you even play here in terms of, because so many AD carries are banned out.
Yeah, they do it too quickly. When the
I'm sorry,
we see a lot of engage style AD carries get banned away, and this is specifically to stop that Nautilus comboing so well. But Ezreal, a lot of safety into some potential dive with seeing some Sengoku, so you get that opportunity to lock in there. And you know, Ezreal's very flexible. A big 3-item spiker can be played with a lot of comps. They don't really know what they're going to be locking in here. Top lane, they want that counter pick, so they want to see if there's a potential to opt into maybe a tankier top laner, or if they want to look for a specific counter pick, and Ezreal can play with a lot of variety of comps.
Absolutely, and LeBlanc is going to be the lock-in into the Vex. Interesting, Jet is going to go for that, assassin playstyle in the mid lane, trying to get ahead and trying to blow some targets on the side of CGA.
Yeah, interesting to see he opts into the Vex matchup. We'll get to talk about that once we get in game. We combine that with the Gnar blind, which people love to do in the LJL, and that brings his comp to a really round-up comp with a lot of AoE engage tools coming off of Sengoku, which is a very scary position for you to be playing into, especially for Kaito, who's on this immobile mage in the mid lane.
Yeah, and right, let's just talk about the last pick. We are going to see the Kennen coming out from NAB. Has had one game already this season on the champion, and it also just, I feel like, locks in the side of CGA to this we're gonna go in attitude.
Absolutely. Huge AoE engage choices. Tandem so well with dealing with, I mean, we already talked about how they may want to deal with the Xayah, and this just doubles down on that. Just adding additional dive choices can really help to actually reduce that champion's overall effectiveness. Now, Kennen did get buffed this patch as well. Very small buffs coming in for this Yordle in the top lane, but everything matters. And Yordle was already, I mean, Kennen last season was an absolute monster. And after these buffs, it seems like people are a little bit more eager to pick him up again, which I always appreciate. I love seeing this champion.
Yeah, I mean, if the slicing mushroom connects, and that is a really great way for CGA to start winning those team fights. But I mean, I'm looking at both of those comps. It's not like Sengoku don't have a team fight. They've got the Hecarim, they've got the Gnar, and all the other champions. So where really are the differences between those two team comps?
I think you're looking towards mid and AD carry, right? Because very different roles. We're going to see a lot of, I mean, LeBlanc and a very aggressive one-item stancer, and this pairs so well with the Leona, a very aggressive roamer we're going to be seeing, and we're going to see how Jet and Once can really pair up to look towards potential roam choices, and then combine that with LeBlanc just having some really obnoxious flank control means that maybe Kaito's going to feel a little bit restricted this game. However, though, both AD carries looking towards a lot of safety. We're seeing ranged top laners. You're talking about it, and these comps do seem very similar on the surface level. So I think really it's going to be seeing how these lanes interact with each other. I'm excited to look towards mid lane and look towards how Jet and Kaito can play against each other, because when Vex first came out, people were like, oh, this is a LeBlanc counter. This is a dash champion counter. And as the meta's unfurled, people have actually found ways to play through these counter matchups and find space in them. So especially considering Jet locked this into the Vex, I really want to see how he handles this lane.
Yeah, that I think reminds me, CGA versus V3 in the second round robin. We saw Kaito play into that LeBlanc and protect the ever-living hell out of Hybrid. So we have seen this work already. We have seen that Vex against LeBlanc on Kaito. So yeah, let's see if that happens again this game after going into the Rift.
Absolutely. We see a little bit. So supports, bot lanes have been opting into this more and more. They're just going to walk into this bot side, make sure they can't be cheesing at level 1. There's increasingly junglers are just looking towards leashless clears as well as top side starts as well.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a standoff. We get to see the runes, both supports being Glacial and Joyous. A bit of an invade from Hybrid and Nemo, responded by Once, Jet and Paz going into the top side, just dropping the ward.
Cheeky little trinket coming in. Don't know if he has time to swap into red trinket, and it doesn't look like he's going to have the time to opt into that. That's fine. He'll get it on his first reset. It means that any vision that Hybrid and Nemad would try to set up, as they haven't used the yellow trinkets, that can't be cleared in first red trinket usage. And now we see the state. So we are seeing double jungle topside start, and Hecarim, a notorious full camp clearer, does it very, very well. But when you're looking at this mid lane matchup, I want to see if there's any priority put towards that.
Yeah, but we will see this CJ bot lane. They tried something. Never mind, didn't quite work out. Okay. Blitzcrank is fairly split between those teams, as Nemo going in wild with the dredge line into the wall. Just a bit of a trade back and forth.
Honestly surprised to see. I think it's so funny that it's so ranked similarly a big hook onto Honey. It's going to be a lot of poke damage out all in.
Oh yeah, that's Ended Blade, and Nemo is down to 200 health already. Level 1 trades between those supports, and pretty close, but yeah, Nemo will have to play a bit more safe.
Yeah, very aggressive starting from this boss side. Yeah, you mentioned it there. Blitzcrank Bot thought this game was going to be very even, and the comms also seem to function very similarly as well. So it's going to be how each player kind of finds their own interpretation of how to play the game, and especially looking towards those different item spikes from key players. So the first thing we'll be looking towards is Kassin on this one item spike. The builds that pro play may opt into may not fit what Rek'Sai players are really looking towards. We're going to see if he does end up picking up that first mythic, and because this champion's such a good one item spiker.
Absolutely. Also, it's worth mentioning that Kassin was spotted out on the Raptors, as Jet, going in for a trade onto Kaito, does manage to get a nice electrocute proc and wins out on that one.
Very small trades coming in mid lane. Double corrupting start plus cookies means these people are they're trying to stay in lane for as long as possible. Really wait until they can get that lost chapter coming in. And Hecarim, that first clear really coming in benefit here. He's managed to get all 6 camps done, as opposed to Kassin skipping walls, going straight for that Gromp before he's onto that bot scuttle. It means he is on the scuttle first though, so small wins coming out on either side.
Yeah, you can see a lot of missing pings roughly in Kassin's location, and that's why, Honey and T playing very much underneath the tower, making sure they don't get ganked. And now the junglers do come in contact, which means that I don't think we're going to see any ganks. And also, you mentioned this mid lane, so I do want to, maybe just bring up how we are expecting to see the ganks go, because if you're Kassin, I mean, trying to gank a LeBlanc is not easy at all.
And on the opposing side, having access to the distortion means that Jet's going to repeatedly be distortioning forward for trades anyway, and that can really set up well if he's able to hit those chains to look for ones to gank in with that ghost. So Kaito's going to have to be really careful about how he balances that fear out in terms of if he uses it for trading, or if he keeps it open or uses it in timer for when once might be looking for potential ganks.
Yeah, but it seems that both junglers will just full clear into backing, and the game is almost dead even. Slight advantages in CS. Mid lane for Jet. I don't know if we are going to call it a bot lead for Hybrid. I mean, it's 2 CS.
It's surprising to see how slow the game has been, considering we have LeBlanc, Leona, and Nautilus. But you have to appreciate it. Remember, these teams they're very close in the standings at the moment. CGA having fallen off a little bit recently, they're still potentially pushing for this 3 spots. So who comes in?
Nemo manages to find Honey through the minions, and immediately Zaz taken down to half health, but first blood taken down as Nemo falls down, and Hybrid able to make it a 1-for-1. Though it is the ignite for Nemo that takes the kill, and NT can't he finish off the kill. The cleanse coming out. Chilotron doesn't find the stun. NT flashes away from the Mystic shot. Hybrid, does he face check the push? Yes, he does, but NT was running away, and that's a 2-for-1 for the bot lane of CGA.
So hypey. Hybrid maintains his 5 passive stack, then he instant cleanses NT stun as well. So incredible play coming up from Hybrid there. And finally, a little bit of action. Now this sets up Hybrid very, very nicely. Whilst kills are exchanged, he does end up picking a little bit of CS as well, and he gets to set up the wave state as well for this bot lane, so he has control of how the next couple of minutes are gonna be.
Yeah. Oh, that was a mistake, Hybrid.
That is unfortunate. I think I may understand what he was trying to do there. Jet just hits level 6 on the perfect timer.
Yeah, Kaido is just stuck with the ethereal chain, so very low. Nemo finds the hook onto Jet, and Jet has to flash away. Flash fall through from Nemo. He's looking for the kill, but the pots are just coming one after another. The Jet will be able to get out. But the flash
suddenly a lot of action at once. And that Tome Up tonic for Jet there was really the saving grace for him. Ends up popping that second point of the corrupting pot, the final point of the corrupting pot, just as Nemo flashes forwards for a little bit of damage. And
yeah, Shadow Surge is going to connect onto Anti. He is just dead with Kassin finally on the board on that Rek'Sai. All right, I mean, this game is chaotic. We've had a lot of kills going down, so
it's also dead even.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is the end result?
It seems like with NT getting picked off just now, that's actually going to lead to first Drake for CGA. And through that, though, SG have managed to get themselves a nice little gold lead onto the side. So there's ebbs and flows of of gold at the moment. And this was such a big hook here. You can see he lands it straight away. And look at Hybrid. Even whilst the first kill gets picked up by Honey, Hybrid is fully stacked and is ready to clean up the remaining fight. And I think NT tries to play as best as he can, thinks he has damage, but look at the cleanse. So on point to pick up the final kill. And even with NT having to flash out, hasn't got the remaining HP to take that fight. And now we're going to get this in forward. We're going to see what he's doing. So I think Hybrid here was trying to pull the wave. He had Kassin in point. I think he's eating forwards because he knows that the wave is going to be there. And he wants to pull it so that the wave can crash. He's just not looking at reset timings. Remember, early on in the game, you get a little bit of extra move speed out of base to get to your lane earlier, and it doesn't account for it and ends up getting picked off there.
Yeah. Unfortunate to say the least. Will mean that Honey isn't really put as far behind as maybe CGA would have liked him to be, or to be honest. With those scoreboards and CS, I don't even think he is behind at all right now. But it's interesting to see because last game we saw the Gale Force LDR crit Zaya. Now this seems to be going with this serrated Dirk into what I can only guess might be Eclipse.
So there are two builds going around for Zaya right now. The Eclipse is the second one. We normally combine it with Zeralda's Grudge as well as a Q-Max, and this means you just get repeated slows coming out to really enable your team to fish for additional follow-up and maybe look for pickoffs through that. And on top of that, incredible safety into divers because you get all that CDR coming in, meaning you have repeated blade pulls as well as having that ultimate on a lower cooldown. So Honey's really identifying that there's a lot of dive coming up from CGA. I want as many answers to it as possible.
Yeah, and so far it is working well enough for Sengoku. They are going to try and take the Herald. It is, of course, warded by CGA. You can see them moving up. Ultimates are available. Casino was fishing. The Herald is low. And Kassin just comes in and steals it. And right now we're going to have the fight with Pass going mega. The slicing legend coming through, but there is just no damage from CGA, and 2 kills picked up by Sengoku already, with Kaito attempting to run away. The fear will make sure he can do so.
Yeah, Sengoku just a load of patience there to wait for the right timers to find that complete AoE to pick up that fight there. And even though they lose the Herald as mentioned, and Kassin actually did end up picking up there before he fell, they pick up 2 kills in return. And this sets up this this jungle top lane duo just a little bit better, and it means that they found themselves a tidy gold lead of just 1,000 gold.
Yes, now Kaito going aggressive in the mid lane. Jet does have the potions, so he will be able to sustain through the fight. Here comes the crucial barrage, and no way!
A little emote with the penguin. He knows that it's not going to hit. He's not even worried. Didn't even stop his reset. Very well played for Jet there to avoid dying and getting 2 ultimates in exchange. So a little bit of tempo as well.
I mean, it takes so much courage to not flinch here, I feel like. Anyways, well played by Jet. Manages to go for the recall here. And yeah, as you mentioned before that entire fiasco, Sengoku are now the team in the lead. And also, I feel like I will just hold on with that point. I guess we have a fight going on in the bot lane with Honey dropping the feathers from Nemo. Is just rooted in place. Ignite now drops the depth charge, and here comes once. Hybrid has to try and flash away. Once takes a detour, won't go for Nemo. Instead, Hybrid is going to be the target, down to 100 health. The feathers are pulled back, and Kassin takes a kill back, but will surely fall down. And Jet on the flank taking up the kill. 3-4-1, and Goku start to dominate.
Oh, and this can mean a big couple of things for Honey specifically. He's going to restrict all the CS the Hybrid would have been picked up, or maybe look for a play himself. On top of that, Jet was on a timer. He had that wave shove in. Remember, Kaito looked for that kill on him, so he actually ended up getting his reset late, and that means Hybrid, or sorry, I should say, Jet had a free reset. We can see how this fight pans out, and I think Honey, remember this build, a lot of damage coming onto people who end up getting a lot of blades stacked against them, and it really shows here. Look at this blade call, look at the amount of damage, and this really sets a successful fight because Hybrid can't find any more damage onto Honey, and once being really patient here, pick off the AD first, knows there's a lot of potential damage coming out. Hybrid gets picked off, and even though the kill is exchange, ultimately a 1-for-3 with Jet moving down, very successful for Sengoku.
Yeah, and we do see now the Prowler's Claw coming out, but with Sengoku starting to find those leads, is Kassin still on that super powerful spike, or has that now been damped?
I think you have to look at how restricted he is in terms of targeting, right? I mean, how can he get onto Honey or Jet? Jet with the safety of the distortion, Honey with this penetration build, meaning he's going to have a lot more CDR, and that ultimate's going to have a lot more uptime. meaning, yeah, targeting's can be very limited. We're going to see how Kasin navigates that actually specifically, because remember, he does have a lot of follow-up with that. We've got Nema with the depth charge, a fantastic pick-off tool, alongside with Kaito having a lot of AoE as well as this top lane. So maybe he can play through that CC to find a pick mid-team fight.
Hopefully we'll have to see us. Well, talking about top lane, finally, some action going on there? No, not really. They're just both going to be farming as Kasin getting sieged in his own jungle. That is a very dangerous position to be in. The one's now going over, and there's the tunnel.
They were trying to fish for something there, but Kasin, very patient, just takes his camp and holds his E to get out of there. But because of the amount of pressure that Sengoku have right now, let's remember, look at the itemization right now. 2 mythics picked up, and Eclipse being a big dueling item and a big skirmish item at the moment. CJ have to respect that, and they end up giving out this Drake, which means that first Infernal goes to CGA, second for Sengoku, and we're gonna see what the soul is gonna be.
And it's a Hex tag, I think, right?
Ooh, very nice.
I saw the logo for a split second. Yep, there it is.
Brilliant. Jace is going to be blessing us in the Summoner's Rift today, and I honestly, I'm looking at the champions that can benefit from this, and especially with the hybrid build coming out from Honey, and I mean, Ezreal loves this Hex Tech soul as well. I mean, it's the best soul in the game at the moment, I think, statistically. So
yeah,
both teams would love to pick it up if they can. A very big win con for both sides. We're going to see who gets to look towards it in mid game. Now, Mythics, very close to both sides. I'm seeing a specific item from Jet, which is that Ruby Crystal, which means I think we're going to be seeing an Everfrost onto this LeBlanc as once. It's just dancing a little bit aggressively, but nothing really going to result from that.
Yeah, I mean, wasting some time for Kaito here, but he will just stay for maybe a wave or two. Can't recall right now, obviously. And yeah, I feel like with the dragon, something to mention is that not only is it the strongest soul, I feel like it's the strongest individual dragon. So whichever team gets to stack those is immediately an advantage. Okay, Kasin going forward with the Prowler's going to one's ultimate is going to come out. Here comes the Shadow Surge. It just clips and Kaito goes forward. Shutdown will be picked up by Kasin. Here goes to the flash over the wall. Jen looking for the retain, but Kasin picks the double and gets away with murder.
Never doubt Kasin. We were talking about how he struggles to get onto the effective carries of SG. Well, he's just counterpoint. Oh, let's just kill the jungler instead. Let's kill the guy who spilled the tank item, and it works out oh so well here. And you can see really the importance of when you're building for damage like this is to get on the fight first. You see the Prowler's Claw comes in, you get that bonus damage, the knock up, and this really shows the strength of Rek'Sai in these 1v1s. When you combine that with Kaito being really on the ball to follow up, right? The Shadow Surge comes out almost immediately to make sure that Kasin can follow up with the ultimate. The execution comes in, very well played, and Kasin with a little bit of style for the outplay in the 2v2.
I mean, playing at the edge of the limits of his champion.
Absolutely.
4-2-0. He's got that serrated Dirk on top of the Prowler's Claw. I think CGA have just found themselves their carry.
No, I mean, he's been doing so well for, it seems like by and large, CJ's winning portions of their games has been through Kasin. We talked about last season how he was a little bit reckless in some of his aggressive play, purely because his lane was not really up to scuff to match what he was performing. Well, it seems like, especially Kaito as well, developing throughout the split has really enabled Kasin to play on these more aggressive style junglers and perform very, very well. And it's been a highlight to watch when you're watching this team.
Yeah, the plate's coming down. It's fairly close. The lead of, what is it, 1, but actually quite a lot of gold. So I assume some plates were picked up for Sengoku here. And the gold is dead even again.
Absolutely. And both comps also very, very squishy, which means my eyes are thinking who can find the first engage and who can find the engage easier as well. And I'm even though we've seen how successful Kasin has been in this early game, 4 kills on the board, you look at the rest of the team and you're thinking, well, they need to land a few key spells to make sure that fights go well for them. Whereas, I mean, Solar Flare as well as Onslaught of Shadows and all the AoE coming up from SG, it just looks so much easier to be. It's kind of non-committal from the Solar Flare as well as Zaya's initial poke and that penetration and stuff. And then on top of that, Gnar fighting tools with Onslaught of Shadows as well. So easy to start a fight for Sengoku.
Yeah, first tower of the game picked up courtesy of the Hull Breaker on the Gnar. Now though, CGA doing a bit of invading, and yeah, I
am interested. Paz has opted into this Hull Breaker, and we see the turret trade just ending up there. Now remember, this did get nerfed in 12.4. or 12.5 even. No longer as effective on range champions. The ultimate comes out, but Nema flashes it away. So a little bit of an exchange there. Yeah, Hullbreaker been nerfed to range champions. Now Nah obviously range melee, so when he is in that Mega Nah, he's gonna get the full utilization of those stats. But when he's in ranged, all of the bonus armor and MR he gets, as well as the armor and MR he gives to the siege minions, they get halved. So I'm surprised that he still opted into it.
I guess trying to force Nap to be on a sideline maybe is the rationalization I'm seeing here.
Yeah, probably. And I think when you combine that with the Trinity Force, he's really going to be trying to pull as much pressure as possible.
Yeah, because Nap, let's be honest, we haven't seen really anything from this cannon so far. This game has just picked up that rocket belt. Hopefully he's going to be able to find something in the fights, because the comp of CGA, I feel like when you have this much engaged, the later you get on, everyone matters. If someone isn't pulling their weight, well, you're going to lose.
Yeah, I think level 40 minutes is really the timer for Nap to start engaging with the map, because you get access to the Unleashed Teleport, and then suddenly flank options become a choice. And CGA, they're starting for a fight now. We see the 5v5 begin. There's a Herald in the mid lane. CGA.
Nap is on a flank potentially. The Herald is gonna get its charge down, and Sengoku, they've got the priority mid, but what for? The river is all CGAs. And there's some poke landing, nothing substantial yet. Looking down the ultimate, it's only the True Shot Barrage that isn't available. Has almost
this is
mega.
The benefit of the Ezreal.
Oh, here comes the Solar Flare hybrid, and Nemo caught out on the side. Nemo will be taken down eventually. There we go. Pass finds the kill. Jet over the wall will be jumped on by Kassin, who goes in with that Void Rush. Can't he find the assassination? The answer is no. Pass with the crowd control, and Nap in the middle of the fight with slicing matchup. He's just looking lost in this team fight, and Honey will take him down with the flash and the blade call. Kaito does manage to get one back, but Sengoku win the fight, and Honey is massive.
Oh my! Fantastically played from Honey. The patience there to find the ultimate, and at later stages of the fight and find some initial damage means 2 for 1 ultimately. Very, very well played, as apparently Hybrid lived on 13 HP. Then we're going to get the play back, and this is really off NT trying to make the proactive play. We talked about it. These teams are very squishy. They want to do the first play. Now NT falling here, but the big thing is Kaito, the ultimate whiffing, hitting Paz instead. So it means that Kassin, when he's going in solo, and there's just not enough damage to follow up. Combine that with Nap completely whiffing the ulti onto the targets it really needs to be on. Then Honey, flash, bam, 1 kill. Sets up the blade call again here as well. With this penetration build, that's really the focus of this. And look at the damage. 13 HP Hybrid lives on, the 2 for 1 in total, and that secures him the second Drake. And you mentioned it briefly, but this Drake is such a nice Drake to have in isolation. Without the soul, that 5% ability, or 5 ability haste and 5 attack speed, it just helps every champion. There's no champion that sees it and goes, I don't want it, unlike Mountain Soul or Infernal. It's just genuinely good stats that people really enjoy to have.
Yeah, and that is a lot of damage.
Oh my god. And that's the benefit of this build, right? Because it's really 2-3 item dominated. You're looking towards, especially once this Mirror Man is going to get unlocked, as well as potentially a Serolda's Grudge. That damage is only going to double down.
Yeah, and we see the gold across the lanes. I mean, Hybrid isn't technically that far behind. It is around about 1,000 gold, but oh god, Honey, we'll have to pop the Featherstorm. That is a massive root, though, with the Everfrost, and once followed it through. Nap in the backside now. Massive slicing Maelstrom stuns everyone, with Honey being taken out. Let's see, can CGA turn this fight around? Kaito in the front side. Paz will go mega now. Hybrid low on the backside, but he's got the red buff. He's got plenty to kite and forces Paz to flash away.
Nap is a monster, apparently. We're fine. We're not sleeping in top lane anymore. Nap has awoken and he's ready to brawl. A huge slicing mushroom comes out, and that means that whilst it was only a 1 for 1 ultimately, was it 2 for 1? I think it might have been 2 kills. They get a lot of space, and they also pick up that shutdown onto Honey, which is the big thing here. And I think I mean, Honey just knows that he has this ultimate to deal with the initial engage, and this is something we talked about when the cannon came in draft. We're like, well, there's the follow-up once that comes in, and that depth charge is really the deal breaker here. He gets it off, and then Nap with a beautiful slicing maelstrom, 4-man to pick off, get the shutdown, as well as play the rest of this fight, because Paz is the only one with effective HP. And even though it was ultimately just a 1 for 1, CGA burnt a lot of things off of Sengoku, and that's going to really set them up for the next 5 minutes of the game, because look at that. Honey, no flash available. Paz, no flash available. Jet, no flash available.
For sure, and we've got 2 items now on a hybrid, 2 on Kaito as well, opting in for that Shadow Flame. And you mentioned how squishy the targets are on Sengoku, so that is gonna deal a lot of damage to the likes of Jet and Honey.
Indeed. 2 items across the board, it seems. Actually, we're seeing that Edge of Night going to be really important for Kassin to continue to fish out these knockups, and on top of that, Muramana for both ADs, as well as the Shadow Flame coming up for Kaito. So hopefully, if he's on point with these follow-ups from the Shadow Shadow Surge, that's what it's called, right? He can follow up on Kassin well.
Okay. Oh
my God!
Demo just disintegrates under his own tower, and that's CJ being a man down.
And that's Merc's treads, I think, really being that he just hasn't hit his support item yet. And when you combine that with his rune choice, it's a rough one for Nema. Absolutely blown up.
Yeah, I mean, Glacial Augment is a nice rune for utility in teamfight, but it doesn't make you any tankier. And tank supports, I mean, it's a myth. You're not tanky until you hit, what, 3 items?
Yeah, Nautilus is notoriously one of the more squishier tank supports anyway, you know, especially if you don't opt into that Aftershock, you're really only playing through that W, and big amount of damage. Now, Honey, yeah, with that, with his itemization coming in, it does look like he's going to be opting towards the Grudge third as well. Some people have been kind of talking about maybe Xayah opting into the Lord Doms instead and trying to mix in a little bit of critical damage as well, because her E recently did get some changes where she now gets a little bit more crit scaling with that Blade Call. So he's opting against that instead. And I think the slow is going to be really important to help set up NT and once to find that follow-up.
Absolutely, and especially if we're looking at picks, which has been really what I feel like this game was about, then they just help isolate the targets from CGA even further. That second Hextech Drake is now spawning. CGA have control of half of their jungle, but Sengoku are going in deep.
See, SG finally taking a little bit of control of the vision. Every objective we've had thus far, CJ have been on it first and seem to have taken large control of the vision. But as we see here now, SG gets some aggressive vision as well as calling out for potentially Nap looking for that flank. On top of that, they have the wave prior in mid lane as well, so they're setting things up for their success. It's going to be how Paz and Jet can navigate this fight now. Look at Jet on this flank as CJ. If CJ can't find the first engage, Jet's gonna find a lot of damage.
Yeah, CJ know where Jet is. Jet goes over the wall. The dragon has been secured by Sengoku. And now we have the fight. Solar Flare going wide. Nemo in the front side. Nap going blast going over the wall straight for Hani, who will flash away and get out away from that cannon. Kaito in the front side now. And Pass with the Megador. He will eviscerate CGA. And that is the fight done. Hybrid buying some time. Jet hops over the wall, but it's to no avail for Hybrid. And CGA, they get aced.
A clean ace as well, and all off the back of some mixed engage coming out from CGA, the successful positioning of Sengoku Gaming, as well as Paz finding that fantastic ultimate at the end there. Very well played. That's a dragon with that clean ace as well. They're going to look towards this Baron as well, and if they get this, we're going to be looking at the economy Baron, because there's 3 tier 2s remaining. There's a lot of standing gold still up. Can they unlock all of this? And then as well, do they have the timers? With this kind of comp, I think with the penetration build desire, there's a lot of sieging options there to maybe look towards an inhibitor.
Absolutely, but we are going to take a look at this fight, and I mean, it just feels like CGA don't know what to do in this situation.
And I think they know that they need to engage because they don't see Jet on the map, but it's too late for them. And Jet does a fantastic job of pulling the pressure from Nap and Kaito, and you can see that it really splits them up. So Sengoku gets to handle the engage choices, specifically Honey. You see handling the engage choices really well. They use the HP pools very, very well, and Paz playing super patient, gets the Mega, and this is really the highlight, right? Even through the buffer from Hybrid, he gets the 4-man ultimate to really clean up the remaining members of CJ, who are all very low and playing very slowly, and ends up with that clean ace.
Yes, we come out of the pause into Kassin versus Paz, but Paz, I mean, let's give him a bit of a shout out, right? 5-0-6. He's been putting a hell of a performance in this game.
Yeah, we weren't really talking about him as one of the highlight players, but I think that's the thing with the Gnar. It's the ever-prevalent Gnar in the LJL. We actually saw it in the previous game as well. Small inklings of success in the early game can really snowball into successful, because you have successful teamfight choices, you have individual damage, as well as some strong laning presence. And Paz has utilized all of those really, really well to snowball his way into a very, very strong champion. I think you have to give credit to the rest of the draft as well in pairing really up well with that Gnar. It really forces CGA to play forward, and that plays so well into the Onslaught of Shadows and the Mega Gnar ultimate to find the good fight.
Absolutely, and the economy is booming for Sengoku. 2 out of the 3 tier 2 turrets taken down. The gold lead is sitting at, quick maths, 7,000. There we go. That's the tweet, by the way.
It's almost exactly 7k as well. And with this gold lead, they unlock this final. They unlock the 2 tier 2s, but the bigger thing is they're also soul point as well, and it is our favorite soul. It's the Hex Tech soul, and not only does it, oh my god, NT is very aggressively dashing forward. Proudest Claw comes out.
Yeah, Once and Honey are not that far behind, and NT tanky enough to manage.
He's comfortable to just use Jace's technology to dash forward onto the map there, and this is really to set up that vision for the next Drake spawning up. So they still have Baron on board. They might still look towards this bot lane tier 2, but I think by and large they're going to look to get the mid wave in, get the bot wave in, and set up vision for the next dragon coming up in just over a minute.
Yeah, and whenever we have a game that has been even for such a long time, and now it is purely in favor of Sengoku, I always try to wonder, how did we even get there? And I feel like a big part of the answer is just the teamfight control from Sengoku.
Absolutely, and I think it's really a mix of adaptation and build. So the fact that the Xayah can opt into a penetration build, definitely benefiting her, because we've seen how powerful and how much damage she's been able to pull out, because everybody's walking into the Xayah, so you get that complete control of the blade recall. And then on top of that, yeah, as you mentioned, they have a lot of general team fight control and some disruption as well, which can really limit CJ in terms of finding their unified engage choices.
Yeah, and Honey's got flash, Jet's got flash, so if CGA want to look for a pick before this fight, well, that's gonna be difficult to say the least, as Kassin's Edge of Night will be popped. The Dragon up in 20, Sengoku pushing up mid, Nemo taken down to 2/3 of health just like that.
Yeah, and they're going to play very aggressively here because they still do want to get a pick off if they can. They want to knock down one member, or at least get effective HP off the board so that they can walk down to this Drake and know they aren't contested.
The Shadow Surge. Honey will pop the first on. Kaito is dead! And Jet on the side will blow up Nemo. CGA down to like that. Not going in with a Feather Storm, but it is the last hopeless call for CGA. Triple kill picked up by Honey, and Paz and Once will dive hybrid in the base. That's the ace, and it should be Sengoku looking for the game.
And I think Kaito just misplayed it just a little bit there. Stopwatch is in inventory, and that was the big thing that could have really helped that engage. On top of that is playing around the AoE, right? This penetration build so good at finding really huge AoE points, and he finds it effectively. Then Honey does such a good job limiting the engage. They find the follow-up, and Paz and Once disrupt it, and they find not only the clean ace, but they're actually just ending the game now.
Yep, it will be Sengoku taking the win against CGA 2-1 in the head-to-head, and the gap is now 3 points. Sengoku making a strong case for the top 3.
They still want that second place. I believe in it.
Yeah,
I believe in it
as well.
Especially after that performance. It seems like they found some really unique playstyle. On top of that, I think it has to be noted that LeBlanc wasn't banned away from Jet, and what a stellar performance this game. Very, very good to repeatedly find these flank points and disrupt CJ as much as possible to make sure successful fights are found.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game that you would see where we have a team in, a strictly higher tier of this league against a team in a strictly lower tier, which, maybe suggests to me that, yeah, we are going to see that top 3. Then it's Burning Core and CGA after that game. At least that's what this sort of match signifies to me.
I'm very excited to see how Crest Gaming and Burning Core handle the rest of the standings now. So obviously that's the final triple round robin for Sengoku and Crest Gaming in favor of Sengoku now.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see how these teams really form.
All right, but I think we will go over to the break, and then J-Rule will help us break down what the hell just happened.
It's been spicy. Extra hot Nando's out here. All games have been popping off, and this one did deliver as well. And well, we got to start where we began. You know, the bot lane is what we talked about. It's where we left off, is what I was meant to say. But early 2v2, Hybrid picking up 2 kills seemed pretty positive for CGA. You know, it felt like that should have been kind of, it's what we talked about, it's what we said was their win con, getting that early lead. They got it, but then overstep, you know, and Kashka, you can break me down this one. How much did that Ezreal overstep really cost them?
Well, it meant you essentially forfeit any kind of advantage you had in the early 2v2, and also it meant that Honey was able to just stay safe in the ball lane for at least a few minutes. Whereas I don't think it was the deciding factor in this game. It definitely set up Sengoku to be like, right, Honey is just gonna do his own thing, and we're gonna make sure that Crest Gaming Act cannot punish the Xayah.
Yeah, and obviously the Xayah, a key component. I know it's Caster Oak, but I think you need to put the Professor hat on today. Talk about this Xayah pick, you know. It's not the most common ADC at the moment. It's a little bit different. And you said in the break, there's a lot of things that you really liked about it.
Yeah, so Xayah slots in very specifically here, and in general in comms to deal with heavy engage and specifically single target engage. And we actually saw quite a lot of that come out from CJ fairly early on. And when the Xayah pick was locked in, they fell into the habit of doubling down, because what they want to do is they want to burn the Xayah ultimate early, and then they want to follow up afterwards. And that works against traditional crit Xayah, because she doesn't have the burst to deal with, you know, when she uses the ultimate, doesn't have the burst to deal with somebody collapsing on her afterwards. But then the penetration Xayah build comes in, and even after changes to it, so it did actually get changed, it got nerfed a little bit, still finds the slot to put it in here. And specifically, you can see it work, especially in that final fight where everything is in her favor. The Shadow Surge comes in from the Vex, and that Blade Pool slaughters CGA. And it was repeatedly in fights where he uses that Blade Call, gets his Q off just before the ultimate as well, pulls the feathers back in, and you can't respond quick enough.
Yeah, and keeping a little bit more on the focus of the build, Oak, does this build kind of eclipse the crit build, or is it just kind of time and place depending on team comp?
Yeah, it works with different team comps. So specifically, you get that Eclipse build into when you can poke in lane, as well as when you need that ultimate as a damage follow-up against squishier engaged choices like the Rek'Sai and like the Vex. The crit build comes in when you're opting towards more consistent damage in team fights, and when you may have to walk forwards in some cases, make sure you're using your W effectively.
Okay, well, talking about some other picks as well that are a little bit more nuanced, I guess a little bit more niche. The Rek'Sai, obviously, coming through once again. Kashka, how are you feeling about this? Because it's not the most common jungler, but definitely has a place. And I feel like Kassin had a pretty decent early game in this game.
I think for sure there was, you know, glimpses of that 2v2 in the mid lane. Definitely is where I saw that. I was like, right, is Kassin going to have another Purple Rek'Sai game? Alas, it wasn't meant to be. But I feel like what I want to see from CGA is if they want to play this Rek'Sai, is really double down on this first item spike. Make sure you're not doing anything stupid early game, and then once the Prowler's Claw is up, just go and do things. Because Kassin had a few good moments, didn't quite work out. I'm honestly a bit of a Rek'Sai lover. I like this pick. I would like to see more of it, but please make sure you do your due diligence, CGA.
Yeah, you can't be messing up with Rek'Sai. I think the Rek'Sai is probably the most punished pick if you don't do well in the early game. Obviously, it does fall off in the late game. Scaling is a little bit underwhelming. But talking about late game, talking about mid game as well, the team fighting from the side of Sengoku was pretty smooth. And I will say, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if Riot sneaky buffed Gnar, or if LJL have just like said, you know what? We've heard of other regions playing it. We're just going to show that we're the best NAR players. But today, the NAR Ultimates have been insane. And obviously, it was pretty true for Pads as well. Like, they had some really good moments on that NAR. Obviously, the Dragon team fight getting that 4-man stun. Yes, Ezreal did buffer it. But it's huge. And do you feel like because of this, maybe NAR is even shifting into a more meta pick? Or do you think it's still just a bit of an LJL special, kicking it off with Cassia?
See, that's tough. I'm gonna go with LJL special because I am just not really seeing this champion, let's be honest, anywhere else. I also feel like Hullbreaker is something that you need to be very, in the mindset to pull off for NAR because, as Oak mentioned in the game, it's not the most optimal item. But hey, if you like playing that, if you know how to pull that off, then for sure. But global meta, nah, I'm gonna say it's LJL.
And what would be like your main counter that you've seen into NAR? Like, what are people able to play? Because so far, 2 games today. Trying to think, was it 3? At least 2 games today. I'm trying to think back to 9 o'clock this morning, but that's a difficult time. A lot has happened since then, but at least 2 games today, there have been some really, really good NAR performances, and to be honest, almost on the carry side rather than just like a setup engager.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of looking to NAR is a very specific champion with very specific counter picks that I feel that people aren't comfortable to pull out yet. I remember Yasuo being a classic one. I don't know if anybody's eager enough to put Yasuo in top lane to deal with him then. But I think I'd honestly love to see some more carry style top lanes come out. Ebby's done it fantastically with stuff like the Camille, which is a very a bruiser that scales very well into it. And when you're able to play around that ranged component, you can punish it very heavily. But there's other stuff. Graves, if you can pilot it properly. The Akali that we've seen people pull out a couple of times. Nap has pulled that out so far and has actually looked very good on it. So that's something I would have loved to have seen. Alas, woe, we end up with another a Kennen slotted in instead, which didn't quite work, but there's definitely opportunities there.
Yeah, and obviously Sengoku's jungler also proved that he's not a one-trick pony. Pulling out the Hecarim there, it's a new, refreshing look from the Lee Sin, but I think it definitely came up pretty trumps. Obviously, we've not really talked too much about the general game. We talked about mainly the picks, but that big dive in the bot lane when he charged him with the Hecarim, left the Nautilus, goes back to the ADC, and they pick up multiple kills. Obviously, a huge, huge game shifter. And do you feel like it's kind of showing that once isn't just this Lee Sin main?
I mean,
he's had a cash code. If you want to go,
I mean, honestly, I feel like the simplest answer is yes, because he played a champion that's not Lee Sin pretty damn well. He showed that he knows how to go for those engages. There was especially a couple in the mid lane that come to my mind where just immediately follows through the crowd control from NT's Leona. So yeah.
Yeah, I think he has looked like, even though he's got a lot of time on leads, has more time off it than on it. And now that the Hecarim's been picked up well, that's 3 picks of the Jarvan, 3 picks of the Hecarim, 3 picks of the Zhao, and the Steam's pretty comfy in all 3. So whilst he's very good on the Lee, I think his other champions definitely can't be understated.
Indeed. And I guess my last point before we cut to break is that it felt like Sengoku, maybe they've been playing some Elden Ring, maybe they've dropped on the Samurai build because they've been slaying all the monsters in the LJL region recently, and I'm sure they can keep that one up. But we're going to be jumping into a short break. We will be back with the final game of the day, Burning Core versus V3.